On this episode of Gianna's Kitchen, we're going to be making Confetti Snickerdoodles, which are cookies that are crunchy on the outside and are soft on the inside. Let's get started. You might have noticed I have not yet preheated the oven, and that would be because these cookies have a little bit of time in the fridge before they're ready to be baked. So the oven, you don't have to preheat it yet because it'll preheat while they're in the fridge. So to start off with the recipe, we're going to cream 1 stick of butter, which I have chopped into like some cubes so it's easier, and 3/4 cups of sugar in our mixer with the paddle attachment. But what we're going to do first is we're going to beat up the butter so it's a little bit softer when the sugar goes in. And we're going to beat that on medium until it's just a tiny bit softer, like not in those big clumps anymore. So now it's a little bit softer. The clumps can look a little bit like this, where they're still kind of shaped like squares, but also a little bit softer. So you can scrape that off the paddle. And now you can add your sugar, and that's 3/4 cups. And you're going to whip that together on about medium until it's nice and fluffy, which would be about 1 or 2 minutes. Okay, so now my butter and my sugar is nice and fluffy. It looks very incorporated, and it looks kind of like cookie dough already, like that. And next step is we're going to add the eggs and the vanilla. So what we're going to do is we're going to make sure we get as much of the butter and sugar off of the mixer as we can and scrape down the sides with the spatula to make sure we get all of that butter and sugar in there together. Alright, so we have just 1 egg that I already cracked, and you can crack it into the bowl. It doesn't need to be mixed because the mixer will break the yolk and incorporate it for you. And then we have a teaspoon of vanilla extract that you're also going to pour right in there. And we're going to mix that up until it's nice and combined. And that basically means mix it until you can't see any of the egg or any weird streaks of vanilla anymore. And it's going to be mixed on medium. It should be about like almost 1 minute. Now that our wet ingredients are all nice and mixed up, we're going to work with our dry ingredients. We're going to mix them up in a separate bowl first, that's about medium size. And the first thing we have is 1 1/3 cups of all-purpose flour. And we're going to pour that into the bowl. And then along with it, we have 1 teaspoon of cream of tartar, 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda, and a pinch of salt. So with the salt, what you want to do is you want to make your hand a cup, and you want to pour a little bit of salt into your hand, and then like take a nice big pinch and sprinkle that on top. And with the remaining salt, you can pour that as best as you can back into the salt shaker thingy, and then mix it all up with a spoon is fine for this because it's just the dry ingredients. You just want to mix it up so there's no weird clumps of like cream of tartar or baking soda or any weird patches of flour. So it just looks like one thing in total. And then we're going to bring it over to our wet ingredients and add that in. So now that all my dry ingredients are mixed and my wet ingredients are in here, I am going to take a small measuring cup, 1/3 cup, 1/4 cup, and you're going to take your flour mixture and you're going to start by putting a scoop of whatever measuring cup you have into the mixer and then start the mixing. We should start it on low so your flour doesn't spray everywhere. And then as soon as you can, add a little bit more because you don't want to go too slow. So, yeah. Okay, so now it looks kind of like this. Basically a cookie dough, nice and incorporated. We're We're gonna scrape that off of everything and scrape down the sides. And then the next step is to add the sprinkles. But if you use the mixer for the sprinkles, it's gonna crush all the sprinkles. So what I like to do is I detach the bowl from the mixer and just fold them in with a spatula. Okay, so I got my mixing bowl full of my cookie dough and my spatula, and I've also got some sprinkles. I recommend rainbow sprinkles, but if you can't find rainbow sprinkles, any other kind of sprinkles would work. We're going to need 2.5 tablespoons of sprinkles. So you're gonna scoop those right into the cookie dough, and then with the spatula, you're gonna take it and mix it around so the sprinkles get nice and incorporated. There shouldn't be too many sprinkles too close together, but it should look something like this when you're done. And then what we're going to do is we're going to let it chill now. So I have a nice piece of plastic wrap right here, and we're going to just use a spatula, scoop the cookie dough onto the plastic wrap as best you can. You can use a bowl if you would like to, if that would be easier for you, and cover that with the plastic wrap. But I'm just going to do it straight onto the plastic wrap. And then that's going to go in the fridge for 15 minutes. And when it's in the fridge, you can start preheating your oven, or you can wait a little bit longer. Okay, so that's the rest of our batter. What we're going to do is we're going to fold the paper over top of the dough. Make sure it's nice and folded in. And then we're going to take that to our refrigerator. Make sure you're spaced. And refrigerate that for 15 minutes before it goes into the oven. My oven is preheated to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. It's okay if you haven't preheated your oven yet, because we still gotta form the cookies. So first up, we gotta make the cinnamon sugar. I have made these cookies before, so I just saved the extra cinnamon sugar in a jar. But to make the cinnamon sugar enough to make a batch of cookies, that'll be a 1/4 cup of granulated sugar and a tablespoon of ground cinnamon. So I'm just going to pour my cinnamon sugar into a bowl small enough to fit one of the cookie balls in. And now you're going to break part of the cookie off and roll it around in your hands. Not too much, but just enough where it's circular and not super rough. It should be about 1 inch or 1.5 inches, and a little bit bigger than this, about this size. And then once it's nice and rolled out, you're gonna dunk it in the cinnamon sugar and make sure every bit of it gets covered with cinnamon sugar. Your hands are gonna get pretty sugary, but that's fine because all the cookie batter you're going to touch is going to be covered in cinnamon sugar. So it should look like this, almost brown. And then you're gonna set it down on parchment paper on top of a baking sheet. This should make about 12 cookies, so you want to space them out enough. Okay, so I finished coating and forming 12 of my cookies. There's a little extra batter for me. I'm gonna put that on a separate baking sheet, but first I'm gonna get these guys into the oven. They're in the oven for 15 to 18 minutes. I recommend starting at 15 and seeing how good they look. They should be mostly flattened. They might run into each other, but if they do, it's okay. You could use a spatula after they're done baking to carve out the cookies. It's not that hard. But yeah, I'm gonna go put these in the oven. Okay, so my oven is set to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, and I got my cookies right here. I'm going to put them on the top row so they are nice and cooked. And it's gonna be in there for 15 to 18 minutes. Or again, once they look mostly flattened. Okay, so now that they're out of the oven, they've flattened out. A few of them are nice and brown around the edges. And if they're stuck together, that's fine. You could either wait for them to cool off a little bit and then snap them apart, or you could use a spatula or something to break them apart. But you can do whichever one you want. And they're ready to eat once they cool off. So see you next time.